everyone knows an elderly woman named Sue, and if not, what you imagine would be possibly a grandma cooking a pot roast in the kitchen, or maybe even knitting a sweater. But imagine this, right? Imagine you're in a bar, right? See some guy with slick back hair. He's leaned up against the table, smoking a cigarette, jean jacket. His name's Sue. I would not have expected that, but man, that's what we're going to talk about today. Today, I'm going to inform my Com 110 peers about a very interesting song that I happen to like a lot, called A Boy Named Sue by Johnny Cash. I want to highlight some of the background of the history of the song in general, first off. So, the song started off as a poem written by Shel Silverstein, who had actually written children's books in the 1960s, later going on to songwriting. And the first performance of this song was in a prison, actually. It was in San Quentin prison. That was also the album name, At San Quentin. So, according to thebook.com, the song was #1 country billboards and it charts in 1969 for 5 weeks straight. It's pretty good. #2 in on the top 100 billboards. Instantly a classic. You're bringing a story into a song. Genius, right? Next, I want to summarize the story told in the song, right? It obviously tells a story about a boy named Sue. His dad happened to have left him at the age of 3, and this was part of the dad's plan, right? He'd wanting to toughen up his son at the idea of naming him Sue so that he was more prone to bullying, according to AmericanSongwriters.com. Eventually, Sue confronts his dad, right? He meets him at a bar years later because he don't like the name. They get into a fight, duke it out. They duke it out real good. He's starting to respect his dad, right? His dad tells him, he says, I this is why I did it, right? Still doesn't make it right. Okay. So, it basically walks through the harsh reality of a man not being as masculine based off the time period being named Sue, right? So, he had to get justice, right? So, he had to confront his dad. I want to dive into how this song relates to modern society in the U.S. And family dynamic issues are what psychologists warn about, right? Claiming fathers who tend to leave their children early cause harder development patterns to be made in the children. And Sue's father, according to psychologytoday.com, practiced distancing. A term stemming from the belief that taking away the toxic behavior of a parent, just removing himself from the situation is better, right? Probably from a lack of self-esteem, whatever. Not being defined by his name, Sue knows, he knows that he's tough. He knows that he's just as tough as the rest of them. That causes, that's highlighting, implications, to gender nowadays. It's similar, not exactly, but in 2001, a documentary called A Boy Named Sue happened to be about a transgender protagonist who goes through, struggles with being in a similar situation, not the same, but the lack of masculinity and the idea of being who you are, or even just having it by your name, is still there, right? And this is according to wikipedia.org page. Overall, the social cultural significance of it is still important, but it strays from the intended purpose of when the song was written. And I discussed the history and the notoriety of the song, the breakdown of the story, the significance of its meaning, and in conclusion, I'd say it's pretty clear. While the song initially was a hypothetical and about enduring hardships, it has deeper meaning than that, and I appreciate the song for that. It's a lot, it makes you wonder about how that'd been like today, and we see that, so it's kind of cool.